Bonjour à toutes et tous, vous écoutez First Print, votre podcast comics préféré pour une nouvelle émission au format Super Friends. C'est le podcast qui va à la rencontre des personnes qui font vivre la pop culture et la culture comics par leur travail. Et vous le savez, on adore faire des interviews avec des auteurs et des artistes de comics. Et c'est donc ce qu'on va vous proposer aujourd'hui en compagnie de Jeff Loveness, scénariste d'apparition dans le ciel de Berlin-Est et de Judas qui vient de sortir chez 404 Comics, entre autres activités dans sa carrière puisqu'il a aussi écrit pour la télévision et le cinéma. Et dans une deuxième partie, il y aura également Jakub Rebelka qui nous rejoindra puisqu'il est le dessinateur de Judas. Une fois que le générique se lance, ce sera en VO bien entendu. Si vous appréciez ce travail, n'hésitez pas à le faire savoir en le partageant. Je vous donne rendez-vous tout de suite en anglais. Very fast, French.
Nicely done. Yeah.
You know, I've been doing this for quite a few years right now, so I'm just it's the usual for me.
We got to get you on a train speaker giving announcements or the airport.
I could do that, but I'm not sure that I will be also like it will be fulfilling. Yeah, you know. But hey, you're Jeff. Actually, Jeff Loveness is with us. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. Nice to see you. Man, I'm impressed with your bilingual ability. You would be a genius in America.
Well, I haven't been to. I've only been to New York, so I don't know America yet, the real America. But we're not here to speak about me. We're here to speak about you because this is not a podcast about a guy speaking very quick in French and in English. It's about you, Jeff, about your career, about your love of the comic medium, but also your love just about the storytelling, I guess, because you're a storyteller in other mediums also. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself for now? Just a quick introduction. Who are you? So you're Jeff, but what were you reading maybe when you were growing? What gave you the spark to just write stories?
Sure. I'm from a very small town in California, but like the countryside of California, the opposite of what you might think California is. And we just had a gas station and a post office and not a lot to do. And so my brother and I would just make movies together all the time, little James Bond movies, or we made like Godzilla movies. We made movies with our toys and our friends. And I think if I look back, that's probably what did it. Like that's what sparked it. There was just all this creativity and we were always making things together. And then from there, I started noticing as a kid, like, oh, I really like crafting the story and I really like adding things to it. And so then I started making little movies on YouTube when it came out. And that just seemed like, you know, the printing press. It seemed like this amazing new technology. I made all these little movies with my friends and then I was able to kind of keep building on that. But yeah, it really all does just go back to making things with your friends. That joy and like that spark you get when you're laughing with each other and you're telling a joke and they make a better joke and add on top of it. And you have a goofy idea and you put it on YouTube and maybe 200 people see it, you know, but it feels like a huge success. And then I got very lucky. I was able to write for The Onion, which was kind of an American satirical comedy website. I think it's still around. Yeah, they're still doing it. And then I got some TV work on Jimmy Kimmel, that late night show.
But just before that,
yes, of course.
Did you take studies about writing? Or
I was studying to be a history teacher. That was my main. I was going to be a teacher, and writing was always kind of a dream in the back of my head. But I didn't. I didn't think it was a real possibility. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a pathway. And that is where the internet really did open things up for me because people saw my YouTube videos and then I saw that they were getting somewhat popular and I was able to write for The Onion over the internet. And so then eventually there came a point where when I got that job for The Onion, I kind of made a decision with myself like, okay, this is permission. Maybe you should go for this now. And you should really take a run at it and really try harder with your work and try to elevate it. I think I took one writing class in school, but mostly just a la carte, you know, like mostly it's just picking up stuff and watching a lot of movies and reading a lot of books and learning the structure as you go.
So what So you first started in television.
Yes.
With the Jimmy Kimmel show, and then
Jimmy Kimmel. I was there for about 6 years doing a lot of sketches, some acting here and there. I had a quick role on the Office real quick. I had like 3 lines. But then I eventually moved into more narrative work. And I got some comic book jobs from Marvel, DC, and then some independent comics. Rick and Morty was kind of the next big TV show job that I had. And that was pretty heavy duty storytelling and heavy on structure and writing. And like you had to really be on your game there. And I got to work with the most like amazing group of writers, you know, that image you might have of that like American sitcom writer's room, a room basically this size that we're in, full of like 12 depressed writers. That was like a joy. That really was like, that's where I feel like I was able to really let loose with the writing and go for it. And then at the same time, write my own comic books on the side, which allowed me to explore, more themes that you wouldn't see on that show.
But were you attracted to comic books?
Oh yes, I loved comic books growing up. They taught me how to read.
Because you told us before that in your village, your small town, there was a post office.
Yes,
but you didn't mention that there was a library or a comic shop.
Comic books were about an hour away, and this was a little pre-internet, so we had a scarcity. So there was that X-Men cartoon in the 90s.
Yeah.
We didn't have all the episodes. We did not have the channel on TV. So our neighbor would record a few episodes, but I only saw like 6 episodes of that show my entire childhood, but I loved it and I would rewatch it. And my brother would borrow comics from friends, or there was a comic book shop about an hour away. So anytime we were in the big town, we would go there and just buy up, Marvel and X-Men, especially that. I'm a 90s kid. So like, that era of X-Men and Spider-Man is pretty close to my heart. I love mullet Superman. I love that 90s era. But no, I mean, comic books, they really were this gateway to me. And then as I was a teenager, do you have the store Barnes & Noble over here?
We don't have that.
Okay.
Kind of,
big chain bookstore.
Yeah. We've got Fnac and Cultura. We call it that.
Okay. So yeah, the idea
where you can buy books, DVDs, electronics and stuff like that.
I have to hand it to them. Barnes & Noble's a big, kind of American chain store, but you can just go in there like a library and they don't kick you out and you can sit and read basically all day.
Okay, that's what we do at La Fnac.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Yeah.
Really,
great.
Like really, when you're young.
Yeah. My parents, my dad would be working or my mom would be working. And so after school, I would just sit on the floor at Barnes & Noble with those big volumes of, classic Marvel runs. And that I would say was my education. I just sat down and I read from A to Z, like the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby Fantastic Four runs, the Ditko and Lee, Spider-Man runs, the Claremont, I didn't read all the 30 years of Claremont, but, I finally got to see those classic X-Men stories I had heard about and finally, read them after school. So man, yeah, I have to thank Barnes & Noble a lot. I think I need to send them a letter or something.
And at what point did you get the opportunity to not read comic books, but write them? That
happened as a happy accident. And it was at Jimmy Kimmel, that American late night show. It's a great job. The worst part of the job, and we all hated it, was like the commercials you had to write. There'd be a hokey product you have to sell. There's a nasal spray that you have to have a commercial for. And it would almost be this, Russian roulette of like, okay, which writer has to do, the ham commercial here, or like who has to do the insurance company commercial. And then one day I saw that Marvel Comics was coming on. Not the studios, it was like Marvel Comics, and it was
so they were advertising.
They were advertising
at the time.
Yeah, at the time it was very surprising. And Joe Quesada, who used to be an editor in chief over at Marvel, he was the kind of point person there. And so I basically volunteered. I'm like, I will do that. I'll jump on that.
And so that's why there's no more Marvel Comics commercials since.
It's probably I buried it into the ground, but I got to meet Joe through that. Oh man, I completely forgot. I left out a big part of my story. The video that got me the job at Jimmy Kimmel and sort of, I hate the word viral, but it kind of was my first big video, was called Wes Anderson's Spider-Man. It was like obviously
a
parody of those Wes. But I was first. I'll say we were before the Wes Anderson parodies got played out. We were early. But I did this sort of mashup of, you know, Wes Anderson and Spider-Man, and, you know, my friend did an Owen Wilson voice and all that kind of stuff. But I showed that to Joe, and he was really impressed with it. He was super nice, and he just gave me it took about a year and a half, but he sort of opened the door and introduced me to an editor there. And then I got my first short story at Marvel. And then you sort of just grow up the ranks. You know, you get one short story, then another. Then I think I got like a 3-parter with Spider-Man, Captain America, and the Inhumans. I know nothing about the Inhumans. Who does, really? But then eventually I was able to kind of get up, and I got to write an X-Men thing. And then I got my own runs of Groot and Nova. And that was really fun. I feel like he just opened the door for me in the beginning, and I was able to kind of work my way up into having the dream of like your own, you know, 6-issue comic book run. Nothing's better.
What were for you the specificities of writing for a comic book compared to what you've been doing for the television?
Oh yeah, it's different, but you know, it's all basically the same. But with comic book, you really do have to think visually and specifically. It helps to, you know, in a TV script, and especially comedy, you need room for the actors to interpret, give them room to move and to go. Comic books, it's a still image, and so you need to say like, the hand picks up the cup, you know, and it needs to be the angle on the hand, and you have to be very specific, and you have to think about the flow of images. Luckily, you always work with a great artist, and they bring their own perspective to it. But there is very much a tightness of both words and visual language that you want to get across. Honestly, I found it very liberating. It is similar to screenwriting. Screenwriting is very specific as well, but I found comics to be an even sharper version of that. So it forces you to make decisions on what you're doing, and you can't ramble like I'm doing right now. Yeah. You really do have to be economical with the words, because you don't want to oversplash the art.
So you're not writing like a very detailed script with all the
it's got to be
the detail of the background.
Yeah, well, you can certainly give the action lines and description. I think it depends on your relationship with the artist. Yeah. Like, you know, you can really go into detail about, you know, the windows behind Spider-Man as he's swinging through Queens or something, but then you get a shorthand with them, and they kind of know what they're doing. But I tried to lean especially into just the emotion of what this scene is, maybe the perspective we're looking at, what you want to convey with it, and then, just keep your dialogue tight. That I think makes a more readable comic.
What would you say is the most important in the relationship between a writer and an artist?
Oh man, trust probably, and I mean, these are pithy words, but like, I guess respect in that way of like being able to know that he's got it, he knows what he's doing, and then at the same time, I could probably talk about this with Jakub later.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah.
Every once in a while, there is a moment where you have to get in and you have to figure out a detail together, and that was, man, my favorite part of our work together. Sometimes the artist and you don't click, or sometimes the styles don't quite match, but that's a fun experiment too. You get to see the dissonance between it. But there really is it's rare, and it's only in comics that I've felt this. You will write something, and then months later, you see that brought to life into image, but someone took the time to draw that by hand and bring your idea to life. It's a really special feeling to see that ink for the first time when it comes in. And I don't know, it does feel like a symbiotic relationship. It's really fun. And with TV and movies, there's a lot of producers, there's a lot of notes, there's a big audience that you have to, consider. Comic books, it's really intimate. It's basically you, the artist, and the editor, and of course there might be a letterer or a colorist. It depends who's in the mix there, but it's a much more intimate creation, and it's super personal. And I would guess that he loves comics, the artist, because he grew up reading them as well, and so you are both sort of like fulfilling a childhood dream together. So it's a fun partnership. I like it. It's like a co-pilot.
So you would say that it's a totally different experience than writing, for example, for the television or for the movies, because we still have to mention that you wrote Marvel Studios movie.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's, writing there's a similarity to writing, but I would say comics allow you to get more personal and they allow you to get a bit more experimental. And I mean, movies, you've got a $250 million on these things, and there's thousands of people making sure like the makeup looks right on the alien in the corner. Like it's a massive operation. So, I mean, and I love doing that stuff. It's so much fun, but there is a joy to the simplicity of comic books to where like you can sit there and you're writing it and in about 4 months, this will be on paper and ink and it will be, in a store. Whereas, Rick and Morty would take a year and a half to animate an episode. And of course, like a movie, like a Marvel movie, boy, that takes about
because at
4
what time
years.
did you, at what time did you start to write the first draft of Ant-Man? Just to know that how much time passed.
I got that job 2 weeks before COVID, before the world shut down. So March of 2020. And I think the movie came out February of 2023.
So 3 years.
And so, about 3 years total. And we got moved up on a timeline. So so about 3.5 years. But yeah, they're a long-term commitment, where a comic book, I think, within a year, you can basically have that thing out and in stores.
You mentioned that sometimes you might not click with an artist, but I guess that's something that just happens when you're doing mainstream comic books and not when you're doing a creator on, because in this kind of case, you choose the artist you want to work with.
Very true. I mean, and I honestly have had a great time with all my artists. But at the big two, like a DC or a Marvel, they usually have a guy they pair you up with. Yeah. And it's kind of a fun lottery. It's like, all right, who am I going to work with this time? Like, let's see. And they bring stuff out that you didn't expect, or they take it in a, it's kind of, you roll the dice and you see what you get. But I mean, it's always kind of fun.
So does it mean that also for the subject of your comics, you were not choosing? Marvel was just speaking with you and telling you these characters are available for a small project. Do you want it? Yeah,
they kind of, it varies. You have a lot of choice in like my very first story was like a team up. It's like A plus X. It was with Iron Man, and then that little character Brew. He was like this mid 2000s X-Men character. He was like an intelligent brood, one of those aliens. An odd pairing, but I think I just pitched that to him because I liked the connection between those two. And then I think they supplied an artist who was also kind of like me, getting in on the ground floor, trying to work his way up. I think on Nova, Ramon Perez had worked with the editor before, so he was sort of brought into the process there. I forget if he was first or I was first. But yeah, I'd say you're right. Those big two, they usually have such a big stable of writers and actors. Artists are always, willing to work on those big two superhero books. So you've pretty much got an embarrassment of riches. And then on the indie side, you can be a bit more specific of like, okay, I want to work with Jakub Rebelka here. And like, I want to see a variety of artists and see their design here and see whose tone fits more, maybe talk to them a little bit. That's the freedom of independent comics or creator owned is much bigger.
But tell me more about the transition you made from big two comics to creator owned comics.
Yeah. I got the chance. I think from one of those I wrote my favorite Marvel character, maybe my favorite fictional character is Cyclops from the X-Men. Not a very popular guy, not really known as the big, but like I've loved him my entire life. I can go on a 30-minute rant on Cyclops if we want. He's the best.
30 minutes on the biggest douche in the Marvel universe.
Oh no, not a douche at all.
He's kind of douchey.
He is holding it down, man. His wife got cloned. She's died 3 times. Wolverine is always messing with you. That is a fun thing. Like Cyclops seems like a jerk when you're a kid, and then when you grow up, you're like, wow, yeah, he's really just trying to hold it together.
So that's when you realize that you also became a
Yes,
jerk.
you become the douche. Sometimes you just really need to yell at Wolverine to shut the hell up and get in the jet. he's like the weekend manager at the store. He doesn't have all the control, but he's really like responsible for what happens. And no, I love Cyclops. He's the best. But I wrote this short little Death of Wolverine story, and I wrote it from Cyclops' perspective because I love that relationship between the two of them. They're secretly best friends. They love each other. Like it's a really rich relationship. And my editor had left Marvel to start his own company, and he asked if I had an original, comic I wanted to pitch. So that opened the door for that. And then I would stay doing, that was called World Reader. That was one of my first originals. And then I would continue some big two. I would do TV work, but then Boom Studios, I think they read my Nova book, and then they brought me over to pitch on original ideas. And that's been fun to jump between the two. So you get kind of the meat and potatoes practice and the experience and the scale of those big two books. And then you're able to kind of bring it into more of your personal work and really just, let it run wild.
So does that mean that you had no pitches for Strange Skies or for Judas before Boom asked you to do some pitches?
Yeah, no. In fact, they asked just, come at us with original ideas and see what clicks. And Judas was the last idea in the Word doc that I sent them. It was this idea that came to me at night, but I was very nervous about it. I think I didn't, and I'm mainly a comedy writer. So most of my stuff was maybe comedy leaning or a bit more like lighter fare. But then suddenly I just had this idea for doing like this underworld quest with Judas and this sort of Christian mythos epic. And I was scared about it. And I put it at the very bottom. It was like the 8th idea that I pitched them. And luckily, Eric Harburn, the editor, he knew he could see something in there that knew that I wanted to do that one secretly, and he ran for it. But yeah, it actually reminded me of like my Jimmy Kimmel time, to where like I would do a lot of sketches. Like with Harrison Ford was coming on the show, and so you basically have to think of ideas for Harrison Ford, and it kind of sharpens you because it's like, okay, what can he do? Okay, let's pick out those ideas. What sounds good to that? And in my original comic books, I found myself using the same method. It's like, okay, what am I interested in? Like, what do I know about? What am I interested in? What are periods that I could go for? What are genres I like to mash up? So it is a little mathematical sometimes. I think I like to sometimes strip the magic out of creativity, because then you just get lost and you get so much pressure on yourself. It's sometimes it's easier just to do what we would call in Rick and Morty, like story math. Like, I don't know if you know that Dan Harmon story circle he always talks about, or structure. Sometimes it does help to just treat it like a regular job and then put the magic in once you get the bones.
Mm. And so, speaking about your creator-owned books, the two, Strange Skies and Judas, seem to have a theme in common, or several themes in common, about the truth.
Oh, sure.
About the lies. About the stories, also about the stories that we tell, whereas it is about, and also it evokes like in one case the aliens, and in the other case Jesus and God, which are two cultural figures that we don't know if they are real or not.
Right.
So, is there a common theme in your thinking about all of that?
Yeah, I noticed I have a theme of like, even like World Reader, my book before that, I always just have like a sad person on their knees being racked with like cosmic guilt as there's a giant like psychedelic color happening above them on the page. I think that was before I went to therapy and before
okay.
I started taking a little medication. I did realize, especially on Strange Skies, I'm like, what was I going through here? I think I had gotten out of a bad breakup, or I think I felt there was a miscommunication, or I didn't reveal enough about myself, or I didn't want her to know certain things about me. And it's like, I think every relationship is like that. It's like you want to present the best version of yourself. You want them to see who they think you are. And then suddenly like your real flaws start to show up, or your real fears. And so I guess it's a way of exercising fear. Let's go back to Cyclops. That's why I love him.
Okay.
He's so racked with guilt. He's so like down on himself. He's so, he has so much pressure on himself. And I think that's maybe why I loved him so much as a character. Cause like, he's not like Superman. Superman's pretty upbeat. He likes doing what he's doing. Like Cyclops has horrible powers and he doesn't want to be there. And I don't know, it's very relatable. I think he's very human.
So, I'm just going for Strange Skies before Jakub joined us on Judas. If you can tell me, so basically you just told me the origin of the story because it was a breakup. But at some point, like you chose, where did you see Lisandro Esteran's work? Because you chose him for doing the book. So were you aware of this work before, or did the editor?
I think Patricio and all that. I think he had worked with Eric before, and so he was kind of new to me. But once I saw the style and he sent some character sketches, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Like a 1970s John Le Carré, Lives of Others, Cold War, like dusty cement vibe, you know. And Strange Skies, that I forget what the spark of the idea was. I think it might have been just that opening splash page, the simple pitch of like, every alien movie I ever see, it's on our side. And like, what if you could add a little bit of mystery of like, oh, what if it landed on the other side of the wall and we are completely in the dark, and you can do a spy thriller that's also a psychological sci-fi horror. That felt like a fun way to combine genres. And you have this very personal, very, human story, while also he's losing his mind and this foreign alien force is coming in. And, the traditional element of the spy is that they've got it all together. They're always lying. They're very good at playing roles and disguises. And I thought, well, what if you had an element where that is not useful or helpful at all? You're dealing with an alien entity that is almost like a mental being more than a physical being. And like suddenly your disguises, your lies, all your performances don't matter. It knows your thoughts and it knows you, and it's worming its way inside your mind. And I thought, well, that's a good way to show a spy slowly unraveling and losing his cool, because he realizes like, oh, my tricks aren't working. This is inside me now, and it's pulling out my dreams and my horrors. And then I thought it would be fun to flip that as well with the villain character in that book. I kind of modeled him after another Cyclops-like character. I love Inspector Javert from Les Miserables. I just love a sad man who has a duty to do, I think. But I thought, well, that could also be an interesting way for empathy and compassion as well. I guess a mild spoiler for the book. Their thoughts kind of become crossed at a certain point, and suddenly he feels the life and the inner life and mind of this man who's been hunting him his whole life. And he gets this very kind of tragic story about what it would be like to grow up in, East Berlin and Germany during World War II, and finding yourself in this Stasi state and finding your identity and your purpose through it. I thought that was a really fun opportunity to sort of humanize your enemy and to give him a moment. And then you get almost like a classic kind of Cold War, like team up thing at the end. But, yeah, just the chance to do almost like a psychological version of John Carpenter's The Thing, I thought was really fun.
And I wanted to know, so if you were planning at some point to do longer stories, because you've been doing only short stories in comic books.
I think I would love to do an ongoing, like as far as the big two, like, I mean, heck, if there was a Spider-Man that came up or an X-Men run, I would jump on that and try to do a longer form story. Originals, I think I maybe think more in terms of movies. Like I do think of complete stories. I'd get a little nervous in TV, even original TV, because sometimes, at least in American television, they can cancel your show in the second season. You have to wrap up all your plot lines. Or the opposite problem, your show is really successful and suddenly you have to like make 8 seasons worth of storylines. And so I don't know, I find that almost the structure of a movie sort of helps you with a clear structure, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So maybe that's why I've sort of kept more towards the shorter, 4 or 5 issue runs. But I think that's also a challenge for me. It's like, okay, like now I know how to do this. How do I have an ongoing, how do I find like a saga or something like that can be ongoing and can build out? My first comic, World Reader, that was my very first thing. I was pretty young, but I always liked the idea of it. And if ever I was to return to an idea, that one might have some legs, and I might maybe build out that world. But yeah, certainly I would love to have my own kind of fictional world, or the word universe is overplayed, but like to have your own Dune, or to have your own Tolkien world, or something where you can eventually in 30 years, someone else wants to add their own stories into it. I think that's the dream, is to build a canvas, build a world, and then have an interesting enough world and characters for others to come in and add themselves to it.
When the mind of the character in Stray Sky is taken over by the alien, and he see that the lies don't work anymore, it's also like maybe what you were saying before, because you are revealing yourself completely.
Yes.
And does that make you? Does it scare you because you're also kind of doing that when you're writing, because you're putting yourself onto the pages?
Absolutely, man. That's good. That's a good point. I think. Man, I'm conflicted about it, because I love to perform, I love to act, and I love to write. But personally, I do think I'm uncomfortable with like my real self being shown to people. I can be a bit reserved. If I don't know people well, I'm pretty shy and I hold back. And it's probably something to get into later with Judas. But like, I come from a very religious family, a very wonderful people, very, very good people. But I don't especially ascribe to that belief system. And so I always feel maybe a little, not judged, but like ostracized, or a little unaccepted maybe in some areas. And so I think I do have this awkwardness to me, whereas the core of myself, I'm maybe not too comfortable with, or I feel guilty about. And so it adds a little. So now you can see why there's so many depressed men in these comics holding their heads as light is exploding around them. But I think I'm working on that. I'm trying to get better. It is funny how superhero comics do have a really strong psychological metaphor just baked into them. I mean, even as simple as Superman and Clark Kent. It's a goofy disguise, but when you really think about it, it actually does sum up like that Carl Jung psychology pretty well, of like, there is this best version of yourself, but that's also kind of an image that you project. It's also kind of a fakeness. It's the best version of you. And then there's a sadder side, a lonelier side, but you know what? That might be the real you more than Superman. Like that sad Clark Kent shell just wants to be loved as who he is. That was, you know what, as far as comic books go for the big two, I wrote these short stories for Superman. I wrote one about Lex Luthor, and then I wrote one about Lois Lane, but they both kind of have a different lens on Superman through both of those characters. And, that might be my favorite of the big two books I ever wrote, just getting into the heart of that Superman character and showing the loneliness and the duality of him. So I don't know. I think comics are strong for that. Maybe I've taken it to an unhealthy degree, but I think I need to get more comfortable with just myself and not the actor self, or not the writer self. But writing is where it's, because of that conflict, you get to really make weird stuff. So maybe it works.
All right. And so Jakub is with us. Hello, Jakub.
Hey, guys.
Are you happy to be with us again?
Always happy.
Always. So we were just speaking about the creation of comic books, and we were speaking about the previous comics about that was published in France. So Strange Skies in over East Berlin. But now we are here, reunited, the three of us, to speak about Judas. So maybe let's start with the basic question: what was the spark, or what was the idea of Judas?
I always felt sorry for Judas in the Bible.
Like for Cyclops?
Yes, yeah, he is the Cyclops of the Bible. Yeah, he's. Like I said, I was kind of raised very religious. I knew the Bible pretty well as a kid, and if you read the Bible and those passages, it says that like Satan enters into him, and it says that Jesus even looks at him straight in the face and says, "Do what you got to do." Like it's very much a preordained betrayal. And yet Judas feels immense guilt and takes his own life and grapples with what he's done. And so I think there's more conflict in that character than maybe he's traditionally given. But the spark for the idea, really, it's cliche, but this time it was true. It was the middle of the night, and I woke up and I just had this image of Judas waking up in hell. And which Jakub like drew so beautifully in like kind of the opening splash page of the book. But I like kind of epics as well, almost like a Grecian epic going into the underworld or a quest. And I thought, I haven't seen like a Christian mythology quest in a while, like a kind of an epic adventure, an underworld kind of quest. And I'm like, well, now there's something. Judas in hell kind of grappling with his place. And then I think maybe the big idea, maybe this is a spoiler, I don't know, but like, Jesus dies. And if you take the theology on its face, he takes on all the sin of the world. Where do sinners go when they die? I'm like, oh, wow, that gives the opportunity for this confrontation between Jesus and Judas, and Satan's in there too. But then the story really started popping because I'm like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen that before in Western art. And then we were just kind of running from there.
And at what point did Jakub got into the project?
Pretty early on. I think I had written the pitch or something, but
I think Jeff wrote the pitch with few stories and sent it to Eric, from Boom, and Eric picked up on Judas immediately, right?
I think so. Yeah, he chose that out of the big list.
He's got this unique taste for books, and I think he was a crucial member of the team working on that book. He was a very important figure because he was like a link between us. Because I met Jeff face to face like yesterday.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the important thing. But there was a very good chemistry while working on the book. So I think that everyone knew what each one wanted to do with the book.
What did you like about the project when you got it submitted?
I don't know. It was very quick book, but it was the first book for me where I decided I won't take any. How to say that? Sometimes you're projecting thoughts on yourself, and you try to draw the way that maybe somebody expects you to draw, or there is this canon of American comics or European comics. So this book was the first one for me. I was just fuck it, I will draw how I wanted to draw. And it just went. It was very fast because it was like 5 months. The whole thing took. So
you did the 4 issues in 5 months?
Yeah, something like that. It was very quick. I remember that we finished it, and I was surprised that it's already done.
I do wish now that you drew it 90s Jim Lee style. I wish I wanted to see just a 90s 6-pack and lots of straps on Judas.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure I want to see that.
Flat collar.
Yeah. Huge arms.
Maybe some manga influence,
Super Jesus.
But it's all there, People like to poke fun about the 90s era, superhero stuff, but it's important part of my system as well,
Yeah.
I never was a huge fan of Jim Lee, but I really appreciate his art, and I think what he's doing now is amazing because I don't know if you guys saw, he's drawing online some stuff on YouTube, and his drawing skills are pretty amazing when you look at it, so.
Oh no! He's
respect.
Absolutely.
I like Jim Lee.
We can poke and respect Jim Lee at the same time.
I love I just to echo that as well. It's like he was the superstar artist, and nothing's better than X-Men #1 as far as like that iconic American comic book image. I'm just joking around. He's a superstar.
No, but to get back on the subject, what were your inspirations in terms of visuals too? Because you have to depict it's hell, which has been done by several great painters throughout the history, but also by other artists. So what were
so the main thing with the hell thing with Judas was choosing the color. It's like a blue book, and for me, colors are the most important part of the book. I hate when people use all of the colors because the thing looks like a vomit, always. Where you have this and this and green and yellow and purple, orange. It's too much, So I was trying to use one main color and build around it,
and to set a mood.
It sets up the mood, and it becomes like a visual pattern of the book, of the story. It's easier to identify, and
And by using blue, I think the simple idea was like, we've seen the fiery hell. We've seen, demons dancing around in flames. And I think
done already times.
The simple inversion is like, well, what if you make it cold and lonely and barren? And then, I was blown away when I saw those blues.
Were you afraid of drawing religious characters like Satan or Jesus?
It's a mix of feelings, because being Polish, obviously Poland is...
I don't know about Polish.
Catholic, country, and it's always a touchy subject, wherever you try to talk about those things. But the other part of it is that those things, I'm not religious, and my family is also not religious, but those things are close to me because growing up, the religion lessons were obligatory in school and stuff like that. So I knew all those things. It was a subject that is close to me, and the mythology and stuff. So it was a easy entry point. That's one thing. And second thing, what I liked about it at first was it wasn't obvious, It's not a superhero. It's not a horror story. It's not this. It's not that. It didn't fit any category. So it was like a fresh idea, and I really loved that part of it.
Do you think that it let you also let loose your imagination and you could experiment more?
Exactly. Because there was no expectations, how to draw it. It's not X-Men book. It's not Batman book with all of the attachments. It's just new quality stuff,
Well, maybe the only expectations were those from Jeff. Did you?
Well, I mean, as soon as I saw his character work, but I remember one page in particular. There's like this demon beast that's in the Book of Revelations, or
it's the angel, right?
Yeah, the angel, the multiple-eyed, and like when he drew that, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Like that, bring a psychedelic horror to Christianity and like use those creatures from the Bible. I mean, that is one of my favorite pages in the thing. And yeah, we just went back and forth on designs. Satan was going to be fat, right? You had like a big fat Satan. At one point.
I based Satan. I don't know if I should say that, but it was basically the figure of a very famous priest in Poland that is not the most, let's say,
respected
figure, But maybe it's better. They choose the second version, which is more like, I don't know, Sandman kind of stuff.
Got some David Bowie abs or something on him, yeah.
Were you, and I've got the same question for you, were you afraid to anger people with a story about Christian characters, religious characters?
Yeah, I was very nervous.
Especially in the United States.
Right, no, a very Christian country and very, lots of guns. We got people, if they're upset, they'll let you know.
Yeah, the mix not
often they go together.
They shoot first, right?
Yes, but I was nervous more on a creative level because I'm mainly a comedy writer. I had mainly done, superhero stories and American comedy. And this was very much a go for it, dark kind of gothic story. And yes, I come from a religious home, and I think my mom and my brother are still pretty upset about the book. So I knew that there was a lot riding on it, but I really love the challenge of, I also didn't write the story to demean or to attack Christianity. I really wanted to wrestle with God in that story and wrestle with the mythos, and to, in fact, kind of hopefully by the end of it, show the value of the love and mercy that is in the story, while also showing the contradiction and the humanity in there. But that's actually, I think Christianity, it's been around a long time, and Christianity has been, it's kind of seeped into the culture. That's something I like about it. You can kind of, like Jakub said, like even if you weren't grown up religious, you kind of have it in the back of your head, and it allows you to.
The basic ideas are great.
Yeah,
the reality is quite different, but the institution is a problem, I think. But the ideas are nice.
I've heard some things about the Catholic Church.
There are a few stories, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I was also thinking if you had to reread maybe some segments of the Bible which are shown in the book to draw them, or if you already knew the stories and you didn't have to go back to the books or not.
I never read this book, to be honest with you.
You should. Oh, you got to check out the Bible.
I've heard it's really nice, but a lot of stories inside. But.
Twist ending, yeah. But actually on that, there was a small element. I think, I forgot who, I think did you do the lettering as well? No. Okay. But like one small touch that I really liked in the book, some Bibles, most traditional Bibles, have the words of Jesus in red.
Yeah.
It's a cool image. I always liked, it's like, wow, that's that's a boss move. Like Jesus gets red letters and the rest is black.
Because he's got the voice.
Yeah. And so I thought, well, let's bring that element in. And it's a really cool part of the story, I think. It's like when he sort of loses his divinity, the words go from red to black.
Yeah.
And the simple metaphor is almost, like Superman feeling kryptonite for the first time. And I really loved how that was portrayed. And that's such a small little touch that if you read the Bible, you know it. And I guess I tried to bring that in, for the fans, a little Easter egg.
But what I really like also about the book is that it's not anti-religious at 100%, but you still like explaining that the Bible, if there's a path, if the Bible was a pathway, it would be a path full of lies or full of you can't decide where to go, and that's where Judas fits because he has to be the villain of the story. But in the end, we're also speaking about Jesus and his love and the fact that forgiveness also and mercy can be really beautiful. So were you trying to extract Jesus as a character from the whole building that is the Bible?
I mean, it's hard to have the Bible without Jesus, I suppose. Like that is, I think, Christianity especially is full of contradictions, but I don't know if that's fully a bad thing. Like humanity, I guess, I didn't want to shy away from the dark parts and my own problems with the faith and my own journey away from that, and also my own reckoning with the good parts of it too. Like, actually, that reminds me that it's a moment in the comic. It's one of the only art back and forths I think we had. It's a mild spoiler, but like there's this moment when Jesus is overtaken in hell, and it's this big turning point of the story where Judas suddenly, who's been so negative and obviously justified, but he suddenly sees like, oh, Jesus is also trapped in this story. And but he also sees that he's not fighting back. He's not wielding his power. It's like, oh, those are the same eyes that called me years ago, full of mercy and compassion. And I remember we went back and forth a little bit of getting the framing right and the eyes and the expression in the eyes. And that was important to me, of like, don't throw Jesus under the bus. The actual, let's say the character or the man of Jesus, it's challenging. It's still in this modern era of pacifism and peace and forgiving your enemies, people that should not be forgiven. Like there's a bravery in Christianity when you do it correctly. And I wanted to kind of give it its credit and give it its due as well, while also attacking what I find to be maybe the negatives or the flaws or the problems that arise from it. But that was part of the challenge. It's a knife's edge. You didn't want to coddle it. You also didn't want to, there's that almost like American phrase, edgelord. Do you know it? Like internet. Yeah. It's like, you don't want to, I think nothing's easier and hackier than to just make a joke of religion. It's pretty low hanging fruit. So I didn't want to come off that way. And I wanted to also kind of surprise people by the end with, maybe the best part of it.
But do you think that this book can also appeal to people who don't have any faith and who don't believe in any kind of religious?
I think so. 100%. Yeah. Because I honestly just took references from, say, mythology, like Greek mythology, the underworld quests, classic hero's journey kind of stuff. I think even if you don't know the Bible, it gives you a quick, refresh. And honestly, you should read it even without the Bible, because these are characters that are in every painting in every museum in the world. They are reference points for literature and how we understand each other. I'd actually be curious what people think if they haven't read the Bible and they come in cold, how it reads. Like that actually would be really interesting. So yeah, email me. I don't know, readers.
In terms of references, because you mentioned Greek mythology, were you also looking for visual elements to put in the book, or was it just all mixed by yourself and all used by yourself?
There is one thing that church did right, in fact, and it's amazing thing that nobody talks about, but it's art. There's so much good art produced because of church that is crazy. And some of those paintings that I saw as a kid in churches, and it gives you a certain feeling. You start to travel, with your mind, and a lot of how you say, Christian art or sacred art or whatever you call it. It's impressive, and so yeah. That's the part of it, like Grunewald, the crucifixion of Grunewald with the fingers like twisted, and it's amazing. It's almost grotesque and gory, but it looks beautiful, or the Hans Memling, the going to the paradise stuff, and Bosch and Bruegel and all that kind of stuff. It's inspiring.
So you let Jakub do all the work for the visuals.
I'd say
or did you put some notes in your script?
And also Life of Brian, by Monty Python. That's one of my most important.
I learned that yesterday. Like on the cover of issue 1, she just has like this Adidas tracksuit.
Yeah.
And he got that from Life of Brian, right?
Yeah. I mean, this similar style, but I was trying to find some, you use this in America, this word iconic.
Right.
Iconic thing, and I think there is a wisdom in that when you make your main character iconic, it's easier to read, and because you can look just at the fragment and that this is this character.
Yeah,
it's recognizable.
And but yeah, I'd say, I mean, yeah, all the art is due to Jakub and what he did. As far as references, I mean, I'm sure I threw out a few loose art history terms like Byzantine art. There's almost like a flatness to the frescoes of sometimes, or the iconography, like you just said. There's stained glass imagery, and I think it was Eric, right, the editor, who had the black halo idea.
Yeah, that was Eric.
Which is such a simple inversion of, nothing's cheesier than a halo around someone, right? We've seen it in all this art, and yet the simple inversion of that made it so powerful, and you instantly get the idea. It's like, oh, what's the opposite of a saint? It's like, oh, there it is. I've never seen that before. And, but no, I mean, I just tossed around a loose, elementary level art history stuff, but man, he took it to another level.
Okay, so Jakub was just announced on a new book at Boom Studios.
Oh, cool.
Aren't you planning to work together again at some point?
I would love to.
That would be a blast, We have to do it because
I would have loved
we have to assemble the team,
Yeah. I would have loved if you had said like, oh yes,
absolutely
and it was like,
not. No.
The best awkward moments that I would get in my podcast.
No, I mean any time, man. I think we were talking a little yesterday. We met for the first time.
Yeah,
like you said.
Actually.
I mean, I would love to. There's a certain aesthetic we were talking about. We'll see what hey, it's comics, baby. Who knows?
Yeah, life,
All right. Thank you very much, both of you guys, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, this was fun.
Start, and I'll stop when Jakub is here, and we'll give also here another mic to speak specifically about Judas.
Great.
Because I love Lady Gaga, so didn't get the joke.
I didn't. Wait, I love what? Sorry?
Lady Gaga.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get the. I'm sorry. Jet lag.
I missed my joke. No, and it's on the record, and it's on the record.
I forgot that she had a song called Judas. I don't know American music very well.
Well, that's every time we spoke about Judas being published in France, I was doing a joke about Lady Gaga.
Oh wow!
I was like, yeah, Judas is coming to a 404 comics, and it's not an adaptation in comic books of the song Judas. It's something totally something else.
Any way you can get the word out, man. Anyway.
Yeah. So I'll just start by doing a quick introduction in French, and then we speak in English, obviously. Because you didn't have the time to learn French.
I did not. No, unfortunately, on the plane. I learned Argenté. I know like Gambit level French in an X-Men comic. He'll say "mon ami" a few times. Yeah. That's about all I know.
Bonjour baguette.
That's about it. Yeah.